Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Apex. I am Paul. Hope everybody's having a great week so far. And I'm joined by Meredith. Meredith, how are you?
I'm fantastic because silly season has started with a bang.
Listen, excuse me, I did not think we were going to have to, I thought we were going to have to wait longer than we did. It moved
Me too.
quicker. And we even talked about this on the episode. I knew something was going to happen, and I asked you guys what you thought was going to happen. And this was not in our bingo card of predictions.
Not at all. I think I am just shocked that this is how it started. And I think it's more than I could have ever asked for.
Wow, I know. But before we get into that, you guys are noticing it's just two of us instead of the usual three. Josh is on vacation with his wife and some friends in Mexico. So Josh, if you can hear us and enjoy, I hope you're enjoying Mexico. And yeah, we can't wait to have you back on the episode to get your thoughts on what just happened.
I know that man is enjoying Mexico because Courtney and I have been messaging.
Is
And
that
I
right?
know they are having a time. And in fact, we do have some commentary because I'm really proud of Josh. He has really unplugged and he has left his phone in the hotel room and he is truly living it up on the beach.
Man, good for him.
But I love it because I got morning updates that were from him 8:20 a.m. yesterday on Courtney's phone. What the F is happening? Dash Josh. I said, mayhem. He says, I left my phone in the room and the world fell apart. I said, all out Red Bull chaos. And he said, complete madness going on. He said, I did not have this in my summer break bingo cards.
Well, let's get into it. News broke yesterday morning that the executive for Red Bull, decided to part ways with Christian Horner. And man, did not, like we said, did not see that happening. So after 20 years, countless world titles, countless wins and podiums, Red Bull is without Christian Horner, which is a first because when the company bought out Jaguar, it was Christian Horner who was at the helm, and he's been there ever since. So man, it just raises so many questions. Why now? Where does the future go for them? Did they do this to appease Max? Because reports are saying that after Silverstone, Max's dad and Horner kind of got into a fight. They kind of had, a verbal argument. So, man, what are your thoughts about this?
I am a person who is easily influenced by the internet, and I've read so many different things. My immediate gut reaction was timing matters in the narrative of the media, right? And we just saw everything come out about Max Verstappen being in talks with Mercedes potentially, and we know that George has not had a contract extension renewal signed. We were expecting that to come with how strong the start of his season was, but then with everything coming out with Max, my gut instinct was that this was a move from the top in a last ditch effort to try to save Max. And if they were saying, look, Max, we know you're not happy with the car, you're not happy with where we are, so let's cut the head off the snake, let's start fresh, like stay with us, let's rebuild. That was my initial reaction. But I was also reading a lot of stuff on the internet about how this could have come because a major shareholder with Red Bull sold their shares, and it was like a 2% share stakeholder. And that 2% share stakeholder then went to another stakeholder who does not support Christian. Christian Horner was backed by this one stakeholder, and the paperwork was filed in Austria legally. So part of me was like, is this less about Max and more about just where the team stands in position in general? And that stakeholder sold their shares, and that other stakeholder said, let's make a change, and we're starting at the head in hopes of rebuilding and changing. I mean, if you're Max Verstappen and you're going, Nico Hulkenberg has scored more points than me in the last 4 races, you're probably not thrilled. But to me, reading some of those reports about the financial decisions and the stakeholders, that made it seem a lot less reactive than just like what came out in the news about Max and being in talks with Mercedes.
Yeah, and I also heard there were some people upset ever since the Checo thing,
Yeah.
releasing his contract and just like you said, direction of the team. Man, it's interesting. I saw a report this morning that Max flew to the Red Bull factory to kind of make face with the people and keep morale high.
Yep.
So I don't know, man. This is like I said, this was shock to me. I was in those half asleep, staring at my phone, going, "There's no way this is true. There's no way this is true."
I could not believe it when I woke up to your text message.
I
I
was
was like,
literally in bed, half asleep, going, Yeah, that's because at first you go on Twitter and it's you see one and you're like, okay,
Right.
that's crap. But it was one after the other. I was like, boy,
That's what did it for me was I scrolled and I was scrolling and it was all
yeah,
reliable sources. And I was like, oh my gosh, Paul broke the news to me. So, I mean, first thing I do is I get online, I get on Instagram and I forward it to my dad, who is Max's number one fan, huge Red Bull guy. And I'm like, oh, I can't wait to break this
yeah,
news.
absolutely.
But for me, I was like, wow, well, politics and what was happening in the personal world of Hornygate 2024 didn't matter to the team. They were able to sweep that under the rug because they still delivered a championship. Max still won the title last year. So I was like, okay, so performance matters to them, not the
Correct.
personal. But once that performance left, I'm sure they were a little less lenient on putting up with that mess because that's still ongoing in the civil suit. I'm like, I bet they were like, silly season, like this is our chance. Let's go.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think with that, I think we were a year too late. I think they should have gotten rid of Christian, especially after the allegations that came out, the text messages. I think this is a lot more, this was reactive in my opinion. But like you said, when you're winning, you can brush things under the rug and forget about them. But now that you're not winning, a lot of fingers get pointed.
And I think there, like somebody, like that's the reality of a business. Somebody has to be accountable for the business decisions. That second
Yeah.
car is not working. We all know the second seat curse. And eventually someone's going to have to take fault for that. When the first car is no longer winning titles and up competing in those top three spots, then I think the reality is that there's got to be accountability. And unfortunately for Red Bull fans or Christian Horner fans, it came down to him this time. And I also think it was long overdue. I think he should have been let go last year. When there's a personal scandal of that size, there's no way that doesn't detract from the business. And so I think distract, is that even a word?
Either
I
way.
think I think Horner should have gone last year. And I do wonder what would have happened if they would have fired Christian last year, promoted Laurent earlier on. What could have happened with that second Red Bull car? Like, would we be in a different spot now? I think we could have seen a very different trajectory for Red Bull and
Yeah.
VCARB.
Now we just got to see what happens in the next few weeks and Spa coming up at the end of the month. Man, I can't wait. So then the question has to be asked, where does Christian Horner go? Because I
Home.
don't think he's gonna
Send
be
your ass home. Sit your ass at home, sir.
I don't think he's gonna be away from F1 for too long. I think we're
Well,
gonna
I
see
also
him
think
back
with
on the grid.
how they did his dismissal, with how much they let him speak to the team, they published his speech, they did a whole thing for him. Like it was a cordial parting of ways. In terms of like, if you're going to get sacked, that's the nicest, most professional send off of somebody getting sacked that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So I do think he will make his way back, unfortunately, somewhere. I really wish that he would take some time and not jump into another team. She Loves Brooms is a social media F1 social media account that I follow, and she does hilarious content about F1. And she posted a video. She loves Ferrari and is a Ferrari hopeful too. And she posted a hilarious video about the rumors of Horner to Ferrari.
I was just gonna bring that up.
I would
I
be
have heard
unwell.
that.
I would be unwell, Paul.
Think so?
Yeah, I don't like Horner at all.
I think for me it's hard to separate the personal issues and the
Agreed.
professional side of things.
Yeah.
And Ferrari has enough issues that they don't need that looming over their head. But if we can separate those for a couple seconds, he's been very successful in the last 20 years in rebuilding a team and bring it to. We're now talking about Red Bull in the same conversation with Mercedes and Ferrari and McLaren. And I think Ferrari could use that.
I I think I disagree. I think Ferrari needs stability. They have tried to cut the head off the snake. They have tried to do that over and over again. Oh, it's always the top leader's fault. And they have
Yeah.
tried to continue to do that. I think Fred is building something. I think we saw them find their stride in 2024 season. Charles is kind of picking something up. This last race needs to not be talked about. Lewis has made progress with this car. So I think, as a Ferrari fan, it's kind of like the pattern of, okay, things are going really good. We're kind of picking up. Everybody's really excited. And when things dip again, it's like, nope, let's just fire whoever's in charge. So I wish Ferrari would just sit in some consistency with Fred Vasseur. My friend Lori asked if I thought Horner would go to Alpine. And I said I didn't think Flavio's ego could handle that, but I actually could see that being a really good fit with Flavio's personality.
And I
And
think
with
they're
the
really good
result.
friends. I
Are
think they're
they?
good friends too. I saw a report of it yesterday that Flavio and Horner are friends. So maybe there's a connection there. Because the
Yeah.
two teams that I've seen are Ferrari and Alpine.
Yeah. I think Alpine would be the only one that would make sense to me. I absolutely refuse to accept Horner to Ferrari. If they do that to Papa Fred to replace him with Hornygate, I don't
All
know that
hell
I can
breaks
support that.
loose. Yeah. So then now let me ask you this. Where does Max go? You think this was a move to make Max happy? Does he still
Yeah.
continue to flirt with Toto and Mercedes?
I think I really do think that Max's decision is not reliant on the Christian Horner decision. I think Max's decision will be made on who he thinks can give him the best car in 2026. And from the sounds of it right now, Mercedes is the team with that 2026 car. Everybody talks about how Mercedes is looking the best for that 2026 car. So I still do think the odds of Max to Mercedes are really high, which leads me to wonder if Max went to Mercedes, would they just do a driver swap? Would it be
Maybe.
George to Red Bull and Max to Mercedes?
And realistically, whoever's at the helm at Red Bull, it's still going to be a difficult couple of years.
100%.
I think that the era of Red Bull dominance is over for now. So I think Max needs to understand that Red Bull's going to have to invest a lot of money and power into rebuilding that
Mhm.
brand as a whole. I think Christian has done a lot of damage and all of the issues. Maybe he wants to go to a clean slate like Mercedes, which seemingly has everything put together pretty well.
Yeah. I would be interested to see, who, like, thinking about the leadership at Red Bull now, we got Laurent, who is now the CEO. We've got Alan Permain, who is now the V-Carb team principal, right? Like, I would be interested to know what their relationships are like with other drivers. I know Laurent is very well connected within the paddock, and everything with Red Bull is up in transition in general. Like, we've got new engine coming in. We're going from Honda to Ford. We've got Yuki that's up in the air, hasn't delivered in the second seat. Not necessarily like that's the second seat curse. We knew that. But Yuki's up in the air. Max is up in the air. Liam and Isaac are just down there in V Carb, just like trying to get points where they can. And they have been picking up points. I think Laurent has had a lot to do with that with his leadership. I'm excited to see him grow into that CEO role and have a positive influence on that team. But I just think there's a lot of change. And I wonder how their relationships are with other drivers, because it seems like Laurent may be having to recruit two drivers for Red Bull for next year, unless
Yeah.
they promote Isaac. I don't think anybody's talking about
No,
Liam moving back up. And
no.
where does Yuki go? So there's just so much in the air related to Red Bull. It's like the six
And I think
degrees of Kevin Bacon. It's like the 6 degrees of the Red Bull drama,
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't see Yuki being in the grid next year. I
which makes me
think
really sad.
I think Josh and I have talked about it, and with Yuki not having that Honda money, with Honda leaving, I think that's going to be a big hit for him. So it's going to be. We can definitely agree that the driver shakeup for next year is going to be interesting.
Yeah, it absolutely would. You know what I think I just like had like a weird picture of? I actually would love to see like an Alonso Yuki pairing, because Alonso's so cool, calm and collected. He's earned that maturity. He wasn't always that way, but he's gotten to that point. And I
Yeah.
really feel like his leadership and mentorship would really do wonders for Yuki if Aston Martin was to ever be like, Yuki, come drive for us. If Lance was like, this isn't for me anymore. I know a couple episodes back we talked about how we think Aston Martin was kind of like soft launching Lance potentially being done. We've seen Yuki can drive. He's a really talented driver, and he has that relationship with Nui. I'm like, that could be cool to see.
You know what I'm thinking? George Russell and Charles Leclerc with Red Bull next year.
That would be wild.
Tell me about it.
But
Two drivers that want a clean
neither of
slate.
them, Paul, neither of them would be willing to give up that lead driver.
It would be one of those you fight for it.
George
Clean
would send it into
slate,
the wall a
new team.
million times.
Yeah,
Every
yeah. I don't
time
know.
George has had to fight for it, he sends it into a wall. He's done great this year. In the races he has delivered on, it has been very impressive. So
Sure.
I do take back a little bit of the disdain that came out in that. But like, especially in like the 2023, 2024 seasons, any high pressure point with George, he was sending it into a wall. And so I do worry that we would get into a situation like what we've seen with like Lando and Oscar sometimes this year, where like allowing two drivers has cost very valuable points just because we're like trying to have an ego off. So I don't know. It would be crazy for me to see George and Charles as teammates anywhere.
Man.
But
Yeah, like I said,
I could see either of them being a very strong candidate for Red Bull.
yeah, yeah, like I said, the driver shakeup's going to be fun. So as we kind of wrap this up, any last finishing thoughts on this whole Red Bull? And also, I'm giving you an out here. Do you want to change your prediction about what else is going to happen in these next couple weeks of summer
My
break?
end all, I did rewatch. My end all silly season prediction was that we would get a Botas announcement. So I still think we're going to get a
You're
Botas
still going to
announcement.
stick to that,
I'm still sticking to it. I do still think in silly season we will get a Botas announcement.
and I
And I
think
think
mine was.
especially with Horner's move being announced, like with that happening and that leadership change happening, I think that may put some pressure on some teams to make some announcements a lot sooner than maybe they were planning because they're going to be like, oh crap, that created uncertainty we weren't prepared for. We need security. We need to lock these drivers down and make announcements.
Yep. I think mine was Checo, right? Checo to Cadillac. That was
Yes.
mine. Yep. I still think I'm gonna stay with that. I think Cadillac is gonna want to stay in the news and they're gonna do something in the next few weeks. So please, everyone, stay with our social medias. We will try to update it as much as we can, and we'll give you guys all the breaking news as soon as we get them. So please, Meredith, do you want to tell them what their social medias are?
Yeah, the Apex F1 pod. Follow us on Insta, follow us on TikTok. Paul does a great job sharing some stuff on X. So engage with
Yep.
us and
The
share with your
Apex Pod
friends.
on Twitter.
The Apex Pod on Twitter. So, yeah, we're just happy to be engaging with you. Let us know your thoughts. Thanks for all the love and support over the last week. We've gotten a lot of good interaction on the videos and stuff, so we
Yes, we have.
appreciate it.
Especially yours yesterday. That really
Heck,
really was
even
a
the one
fan
this
favorite.
morning.
Yeah. So I'm loving it. So I can't I this is why I love F1. I'm
It's
enjoying
the
this so
best.
far, and I can't wait to see what other breaking news happens. So with that, everyone, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and we will definitely be talking here shortly with some other breaking news that's bound to happen.
All right, thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye, everyone.